videos. Obviously, I don't agree with his worldview, but I do like the quality of the videos that he makes. He makes great videos.
The Chinese spy balloon got a full tour of the US's missile silos, air defenses, and other military installations. But this whole Chinese spy balloon scandal is just so much worse than it seems.
And dude, it's so much worse than that. You're right. It's definitely, dude, they're fucking owning us, dude. Okay, I just gotta say something. He's Hawk Lamino, but like, okay, here's the funny thing, okay? Every time he posts a video about China, it literally almost feels like he's pro-China, because he's like, China is fucking destroying America. Like, they're fucking and sucking us, and we don't even realize it. Every time your dick is hard in the middle of the night, and you wake up and you've done a oopsie and you've come in your pants, okay? That's China. That's China sucking your cock, okay? You didn't realize it, but they suck your cock. Yeah, that's right. In your sleep. That's why I had a wet dream. Because China was sucking my cock. That's right. Anytime, dude. Anytime. They're so good. They're so good.
It marks a grave chapter in our new Cold War. A Cold War which could very soon escalate into a full-scale conflict which threatens human civilization. And now that it's been announced by the...
Carter makes us watch him all the time. He sucks so much. No, he doesn't. He's like, just watch it from the perspective of being pro-China, and it becomes really funny.
The US government that the balloon may have carried an explosive payload, questions are being asked about the weakness of the US's slow response. And so what really happened here, and why is this story so important? Well, just a week before the incident occurred, things were looking bleak, but there was still some hope. You see, it all began with Trump's trade war, a series of sanctions and tariffs aimed at gaining an economic upper hand against China. But what was at first an economic conflict soon spread into other areas. For example, China's brutal subjugation of Hong Kong's democracy left a very bitter taste in the West's mouth, as did new information about China's crimes against the Uyghurs. And when China...
Bro, okay, anyone that says the Western world gives a fuck about either of those things, like seriously gives a fuck about either of those things, is literally the most delusional person on the planet. We do things here to our own citizens that would make the Chinese go, holy fuck, I can't believe that's happening. Shut the fuck up, dude. No government official legitimately gives a fuck. I'm sorry. It is just the most insane thing. Bro, Xinjiang, okay, which I think is one of the objectively awful things that China does. Sorry to all the fucking Dengus in the chat. It is true, okay? The notion of like mass surveillance of Muslims because you consider them to be separatists or whatever the fuck after you sent them over, you sent loads of them over to the fucking Middle East to go fight, thinking that would, that would be enough to deal with them, and then them coming back more radicalized than they did before, and then that becoming a larger issue for China overall across the board in your minds is quite literally the American footprint, okay? You just did America shit in your own country, and now you're doing more America shit on top of that, okay? You're doing more America shit to like try to squash any semblance of like independence movements that may or may not happen, okay? So that part 100%, that part is like, not great. And Xi Jinping has like personally said, well, we learned from America on, dealing with Islamic terror. So remember that. So even that though, when you consider the worst thing that China is doing, it's like Xi Jinping isn't wrong when he says he learned it from America. Like think about what we have done globally to the Islamic world as the United States of America. Like yesterday I showed you guys a bomb shelter that the United States fucking dumped missiles into, killing hundreds of women and children, okay? Massacring them. And that was not the first nor the last time America bombed Iraq, okay? 408. Is that the number? Yeah. What was it? 1991? Yeah. I feel like the only NatSec nerd that thinks China's population, which would be oldest on average as Japan by 2050 and relies on U.S. grain imports to grow caloric intake for a growing middle class, means this is not going to pull off the most complicated amphibious invasion since D-Day against the U.S. Navy, Air Force, and Taiwanese and Japanese Air Force. It's crazy. What are they going to do? The million men swim with their walkers? I don't know why there is like, no one from where I'm standing, as far as I understand, no one wants to change the current process that is occurring. Even the United States government's opinion is not different when they are clearly communicating that like nothing has changed with their relationship with Taiwan and China. But in the American media, however, they're constantly fucking making it seem as though like, no, China is going to go in and fuck shit up. China is like 100% going to take over Taiwan. And like, we need to do something to absolutely stop that from happening. Anyway, so I digress. I got off track here. The point I was trying to make is that like, if you think Americans care, if you think Americans give a shit, like American politicians, okay, if you think, I'm not saying that China will not invade Taiwan. I don't know, okay? I would never make a mistake like that. I famously never said something like that convincingly, okay? Shut the fuck up. Been a year, okay? Calm down. It's literally been an entire year. I can't get over it. Regardless of what the US does, what China does, I will never let it stand in this chat or or anywhere where my voice can reach the silly notion that American politicians and the American NatSec apparatus care about liberation and freedom. That has never been objectively true throughout American history since post-World War II, okay? It is a dishonest notion that the American media regularly utilizes, okay? It's just complete fabrication. It's not real. And anyone who fucking claims that is real or even takes it seriously is delusional, okay? Same goes for Ukraine, motherfucker. It might actually be, something that the Ukrainians want, the guns and weapons that are being sent to Ukraine right now. But America sure ain't sending it because they fucking care about Ukrainian liberation. You have zero credibility to talk about China since you are straight up lying. Yeah, I know. I'm straight up lying about Xinjiang. You got it. No, the people love that. No, they're very happy. And there were never any work camp or anything like that or re-education center. You're right.
Their aggression against Taiwan.
Like, I don't even hate China, bro. Like, what the fuck? Why? It's just
the US responded with threats of intervention and war, with Biden recently announcing that the US would protect Taiwan in the event of invasion, and now some US generals are predicting a coming war in as little as 2 years. And so in a very short span of time, uneasy relations have shifted to a second Cold War, and things are heating up fast. And that's where things were at the beginning of 2023. But there was still some light at the end of the tunnel. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken was meant to attend a summit in China to cool relations. He stated that the meeting was the perfect opportunity to establish, quote, guardrails to prevent tensions from erupting into war. The CCP seemed welcoming of the opportunity to clear the air, with Xi Jinping ready to meet the American delegation over the weekend, and it was hoped that the two nations would soon simmer down this Cold War and skip straight to the summit. The meeting was meant to get the ball rolling on a possible de-escalation of both countries, but then just a few days before the planned visit, people in the US suddenly spotted an odd-looking object in the sky.
The AP literally went over there and couldn't find any of that shit, so what are you talking about? No, the AP went over there after China allowed them to go over there, where they openly stated that the camps no longer are in existence as the project had been completed. Mass surveillance still continues, of course. So you're wrong if your assessment of that was we went over the article back in the day when the article came out, and they did go over there and were like, oh yeah, they've closed the camp. There's photos. What the fuck are you talking about? They did the same shit with Holocaust Nazi list journalists and then show them the camps that have been shut down. I mean, first of all, I wouldn't go that far. I think that is bordering on Holocaust denialism to make that comparison. Now, obviously, anti-China haters will do that. China stopped the genocide. They got bored with the position of the U.S. media, which is somewhere in between. These are two warring nation states, and I think that obviously they both have their own reasoning for doing propaganda. I think the reason why they stopped the not the concentration, but like the work camps and shit like that, even though they did certainly exist, was because they successfully were able to deal with the problem. Okay, they squashed any semblance of separatist conversations and basically turned Xinjiang into a happy Muslim tourist destination. They suppressed it. They did. Did the U.S. fly over Xinjiang with balloons to get the pigs? I don't think they need fucking balloons to take pics of those, man. Anyway,
claims that it was a UFO were quickly disproven after the US announced it was in fact a spy balloon, which they had been tracking since it was spotted over Alaska. Estimated flight patterns placed the blame squarely at China's door. And
why do people have to be so weird about China, especially as leftists, like they've never heard of critical support? No, I think people unironically think critical support means like they need our support critically. No, I'm not even kidding. Like when people say critical support, what most people don't understand what that means. That means like you can fucking be critical and criticize a country while still understanding where it might come from. No, they think like American leftists literally think like, oh no, they desperately need our support. That's why like critical support. I think a lot of people just now also learned that for the first time in the chat. They won't say anything in the chat, but they probably just figured that out.
First, they were almost apologetic, although they did insist it was a weather balloon which had flown, of course. And whilst all of this was going on, the balloon just kept on going. First in Montana, it flew over the missile silos and nuclear sites, often fully visible on the ground.
The funniest part about this case is the notion that there is high degree of maneuverability in this thing that they shot down. But it was also so dumb, like it is able to maneuver, so it like put itself on top of these missile silos like deliberately, okay? But then also it like, couldn't get itself out of US airspace without like entering, I don't know, another airspace. I know they can be controlled. Please, chatters. I know that they can be controlled. They can try to tag along different wind currents, like different altitudes, okay? They also sometimes have propellers, so they have a degree of maneuverability. But the idea that it has a degree of maneuverability, but it like also personally followed a fucking wind current that you can trace back all the way from China, where it was like originally released, is so strange. Unless you think that like the Chinese are controlling the winds too. Most of the fucking work with balloons like this is being done by the wind current.
One side of the balloon exposed was the Maelstrom Air Force Base, which has around 150 intercontinental missile silos as well as other vital military installations. And so people were just powerless as they watched the 60-meter tall tall Goliath across the skies, hoovering up all of the US's military secrets. And so what did the government do? Well, they did nothing, silently watching the airspace be violated.
Yeah, fucking Joe Biden. He was sleeping on the job, dude. Sleepy Joe Biden. He did nothing. First of all, even that's not true. Joe Brandon was like, I want to blow it up, Jack. Let's get this balloon out of here. Why?
So what was going on here? Well, first we can establish that this was clearly an intentional move. Balloons navigate by lowering and raising their altitude, letting them take advantage of wind direction to move. And so you see the balloon had every opportunity to reverse its course, but instead it flew directly towards the US. So why did China send the balloon in the first place? Well, here's a few possible motives. First is the obvious reason that it gained valuable intel on the USA's defense capabilities. But beyond that, it was incredibly embarrassing for the US and the Biden administration. Every minute that the balloon stayed in the sky proved the US's unreadiness and indecision. It also—
What? Dude, what the fuck? Bro, this completely avoids like every other means of surveillance that both China and the United States are using on top of one another, okay? What the fuck is this guy saying? Like, you have to just forget that satellites exist, okay? You have to forget, like, even the fucking CIA doesn't agree with this narrative, you know what I mean? Like, even this is so frothing out of the mouth anti-China and like anti-American Democrats that like the CIA is like, okay, you're taking it a bit too far, you know what I mean? Like, at the top of the hour there is a 3-minute ad break, okay? Calm down. You're being a bit hawkish about this, okay? Let's calm down. Let's recollect ourselves. Let's remember that you can avoid those ads by subscribing for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub, okay? Let's be real. Let's be normal about this. Please, sir, ladies, NB, you know what I'm saying? The 3-minute ad break is upon us. Speed Racer, thank you for the 5 get the subs. MP Sharky, thank you for the 5 get the subs, allowing 10 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. Here's the 3-minute ad break now.
It could have been a demonstration of China's technological dominance, highlighting the weakness in what was thought to be the most powerful military in the world, surpassing the US's sophisticated defense system with a simple balloon. However, a third and much more sinister motive is that China wanted to sabotage any chance of reconciliation. I mean,
why would they want that? Why? It's only good for them. Like, they do not benefit at all from destroying relations with America. It is insane. If we're to form a historical narrative over the emerging US-China Cold War, it's a fight over global hegemony, with China trying to reestablish, after a century of humiliation, a global trade network centered in China, and America doing the same with the intention to redirect internal social pressures caused by a decline in material conditions in the West. Yes, but none of that. Like, China wanting to be a global hegemonic power is going to be established through trade. It's going to be established through international cooperation. That is precisely what China is doing with the One Belt, One Road initiative. It is the exact opposite. They're trying to present themselves as like a counter to IMF, the World Bank, as a global power that did not enslave or had a history of enslaving the people that they are helping in the third world, okay? And it's not like they're not getting anything out of it. It's just the alternative is so awful and has a long history of being awful that they get away with, like, you know, better loans, pretty much. That's it. Now having said that, throughout that, none of the policies there revolve around trying to defeat the United States militarily, okay? Because they can't. Like, they can't. They just don't spend as much money, and I don't think they have the power. And also, you know, a nation who may or may not have nuclear arms, okay, and has definitely created their own, may or may not have created their own nuclear program. There is no reason for the Chinese government and the American government to fight one another from China's perspective, okay? China is exerting economic powers of neoliberal control. They aren't following the military model of the U.S. Just look at the number and location Chinese military bases have overseas versus the U.S. They don't spend enough to do that, to do what the United States is doing. They just have a different method, a method that is, I would consider, more peaceful too, overall. And ultimately, okay, why the fuck would they make stuff and then they sell that stuff back to us? We both rely on one another. We're the piggies that desperately decided that, like, no one inside of U.S. borders should ever do fucking, any kind of labor whatsoever, because that would be too costly to the capital owners. So we need them. We need them for manufacturing, but not just manufacturing, because like China is also now a victim of its own success and has decided to also further outsource some of their manufacturing capabilities. But like, regardless, we still need China, and China needs us. You mean Uyghurs making? Yeah, dude, totally. It's only Uyghurs making stuff. You're so right. Yeah.
Why else would they take such a brazen and reckless move against the US? Whilst the US was mulling over these questions, the balloon just kept on going. After floating over Montana, it kept heading southeast over South Dakota and Nebraska. It was next sighted over Kansas 2 days after the last sighting, and by now the balloon had crossed over half the continent of the United States. And this was when the announcements started blowing in as both the superpowers established their adversarial positions. And
if Taiwan didn't exist, do you think US and China would be allies? I mean, look up why Taiwan exists. Just think about that for a little bit, and it'll give you a better understanding. All right,
let's news was yet about this. America's Secretary of State Anthony Blinken cancelled the summit. He also called the spy balloon an irresponsible act on part of China. So Beijing responded by saying that the incident had been hyped up to smear China. The rest are suddenly getting more and more more aggressive.
Taiwan is like if the Confederates led to Hawaii. That's a really funny take. Yeah.
Even though the balloon had been gathering data for days, the Biden administration decided not to shoot it down. The reason they claimed was to avoid unnecessary damage. But the fact that it stayed in the sky for so long is an embarrassment on the US government's behalf. The US also claims that they had been
This is such a damned if you do, damned if you don't argument that he's constructing against Biden too. It's just like the only consistent narrative here is that like China is bad and very scary and America should take it seriously, and Biden is not taking it seriously, possibly because he's in the pocket of China. Not that he said that, but maybe you could infer that. I mean, any reasonable person would think that, obviously. It's just like, he's not taking the threat seriously, and it's the gravest threat that anyone could pose.
Alaska. So it was never an issue at the time. So as you'd guess, Republicans were quick to launch into attacks on the Biden administration for their inaction. One even called it a catastrophic spectacle. Then the news came out that during the Trump administration, there had been 3 separate Chinese balloon incidents. Another had also entered US airspace before Biden was elected. Ex-Trump officials stated they would never reach, but perhaps this was just an excuse to shame. But regardless of politics, all of this made the US as a country look even more ridiculous. But it does beg the question of why this is the first time we're hearing about this. Does the US usually overlook these spy balloons, letting them crisscross the country at will? I mean, US officials have stated that the balloon can't get any more intel than the satellite, but as they haven't analyzed the record...
Wait, even he mentioned that, which is funny. But I also still don't believe it because, they probably have like Chinese magical wizard powers that the balloon was capable of.
And if this claim was actually true, why would China send the balloon in the first place? It seems
great question. I doubt that he's going to have, that's my question as well. I heavily doubt that he's going to arrive at like a reasonable conclusion though. Because that makes sense. That he just said, and this is not like, this is a person who is like openly anti-China, right? As you guys understand. He looked at what the State Department said. True. The balloon has no like additional capabilities that conventional methods could not get. Like there's no additional information gathering methods that the balloon is capable of doing that conventional techniques can't do. So why?
Haven't analyzed the wreckage. They can't really know this for certain. And if this claim was actually true, why would China send the balloon in the first place? It seems unlikely that the balloon wouldn't give China any new information whatsoever, even after conducting a full trip over the USA. There are other less expensive ways of causing a diplomatic incident as well. China could have just cancelled the summit themselves. So obviously there's much more to what's going on than we could possibly know at this point. It could have been the fact this was spotted by regular people, causing the whole incident in the first place. And so once people were aware of its existence, the US hand was forced. Regardless, the US went from tolerating...
Or they could have just said, yeah, it's a weather balloon gone awry. You know what I mean? Gone awry. Sorry. It's a weather balloon that went crazy, like what the Chinese are saying.
These spy balloons to cancelling diplomatic meetings and ramping up tension, implying that the US government might have wanted an excuse to keep tensions high as well. A divided world be of some geopolitical benefit. An increased threat from China.
Okay, not bad. He's right. Okay, wait, maybe I was mad
China
for no reason.
The US's allies are much more likely to let the American military set up their bases, for example. However, the plot thickened when another high-altitude balloon was spotted, this time hovering over Latin America. The US announced its presence on Friday, which was confirmed by Colombian officials a day later. China later claimed ownership for this one as well, but said that this one was yet another weather balloon that were forced. And even with other evidence, it might have been a tiny bit plausible that the US balloon could have simply have been a weather balloon. But now with 2 having been spotted at the exact same time, it makes the Chinese story just so much more far-fetched. Either China let 2 massive weather balloons drift off in a matter of days, and they just...
I think that, like, first of all, do I think that they definitely fucking send whatever the fuck surveillance balloons, like, to other countries? Certainly. Okay? I do think that they would do that. I just don't think that they would do that to America openly, or at least they would think that America wouldn't think that it's a big deal. I think multiple off-course balloons makes it more credible, not less. Who gives a fuck what's going on in Colombia? No, I mean, I don't even know why they would, what they were surveilling potentially in Latin America, but, I mean, they send it over the Philippines, you know what I mean? They certainly are using, balloons to engage in, like, some level of surveillance over other countries. There are so many bigger counterintelligence threats, the only big news because people can physically see the balloons and it's scaring people. Yeah, they fly over Taiwan. They fly over even, I think, Japan even. They've flown over Japan, they've flown over Taiwan, they've flown over the Philippines. They're definitely monitoring, they're definitely using surveillance tech, like balloon surveillance tech in countries like that. I just don't think that they would. I legit think you need to pull a map of U.S. missile silos in the U.S. because holy shit, Chad is really buying that narrative. I mean, here. These are just the ICBM. Also, it's pretty funny, and this is just what that we know of, and just the ICBMs. But it is pretty funny to think that, like, it's pretty funny that we just also know this. You know what I mean? 710 military sites with known or suspected discharges of PFAS. Wait, what? PFAS? Like PFAS? Like the fucking, like chemical. You're talking about chemical. No, not PFAS. I'm saying like the I don't understand this. But anyway, I mean, here are the military sites. 710 military sites. Also funny that, like, this is all easily accessible information too on the internet. But on top of that, we have different delivery systems. We have international delivery systems. We have submarines that could be anywhere and everywhere. Okay. We have bombers, some of which have actually accidentally dropped nuclear payload, by the way, on U.S. soil too. So, like, I don't know. It's just like pretty hard to fucking avoid a missile base or a military site site in the United States of America. I mean, literally, go outside, chatters. Like, and here's where the U.S. government launches weather balloons from every single day, twice a day. But these ascend rapidly and pop. There are many scientific and research balloons floating around. We've created mass hysteria with this crap. My agency's being slammed with media inquiries now. Yeah, because working with China. Another useful map is the USSR nuke map. Every point they plan to fire a retaliatory strike is important enough to claim it should be surveilled, be it critical infrastructure, cities, or bases. Dude, that's a suspicious amount of targets there. I don't like that. Bro, what the fuck? Other than Cheyenne, everyone's clear? What is this shit? Bro, even the USSR don't give a fuck about middle America, dude. Okay, let's finish.
Happened to float off towards the Americas, or they're lying. Second balloon, as well as the previous instances that have only just come to light, both show Hasan and China's actions, with these balloons seeming to be a regular occurrence. Neither the US missed them all before, which would be incredibly embarrassing, or they willfully ignored them. But the debates about whether the balloon should be shot down were about to be ended, as on Friday night, the US made the plan to shoot down the balloon once it wasn't above the US mainland. So as the balloon kept heading east, throwing a path from Kansas to South Carolina, it would eventually show up the next morning. By this point, it covered a large portion of the US, making its way from the northwest all the way to the east coast. And so it was there off the coast of South Carolina that the US finally shot down the balloon. After other flights in the area were grounded, an F-22 jet flew up to the balloon's extremely high altitude and brought it down with a missile. The balloon then fell into a shallow section of the coast, where it could be retrieved without major difficulty. China feigned outrage in the statement, calling the US's response an overreaction, and described the US as demonstrating indiscriminate use of force. But when the US shot down the balloon, they may have played straight into China's hands, as lots of people think the balloon's true purpose was to gain intel on ground installations like the military base we already mentioned. But it may also be meant to gauge America's response to the balloon itself. Vital data could have been gained and transmitted based on how the balloon was intercepted and what signals were sent by the US jet. But a short time after the balloon was shot down, another new piece of information hit the news. It had already been established the balloon could have carried payloads similar to a regional commercial airplane. US generals told reporters that they suspected the balloon may have carried enough explosives to self-detonate, destroying any information that could have been gained if it was shot down. Although now it seems like they either didn't activate or weren't present in the first place. Once the balloon had been shot down, the US quarantined the debris area in case of any unexploded ordnance, so it was definitely a possibility.
The giant Chinese balloon that had been floating across parts of the United States has been shot down by an American fighter jet.
A few days later, we got our first images of the wreckage as the US started a slow process of recovering it all. And once the remains were analysed, we'll know a lot more about what the balloon's true purpose actually was. Experts in aerospace still don't know what to make either of the official lines, saying that the truth probably lies somewhere between the middle of the two narratives. Of course, China will certainly deny any revelations from the US about the nature of the, especially if it is.
Well, I don't even think this is that bad of a video. Like, maybe I missed some key details here, but like he kind of covered every part of it, and even openly. Did I miss it? I mean, he definitely hyper focuses on and really hammers the idea that like China fucking embarrassed us. And oh, I missed it. What did he say?
It may have carried enough explosives to self-detonate, destroying any information that could have been gained if it was shot down. Although now it seems like they either didn't activate or weren't present in the first place.
Oh, he's still saying they were okay. That's cool. He's like, no, it definitely they just like didn't do it.
Once the balloon had been shot down, the US quarantined the debris area in case of any unexploded ordnance, so it was definitely a possibility.
The giant Chinese balloon that had been floating across parts of the United States has been shot down by an American fighter jet.
A few days later, we got our first images of the wreckage as the US.
After chemicals improperly stored by Ruhai Logistics exploded in a warehouse in Tianjin in 2015, the Chinese government sentenced the company's chairman to death. Here, I doubt even one Norfolk Southern executive will spend even a day behind bars. I mean, dude, this kind of shit, like when I do hear stuff like this, it just like, it blows my mind. Obviously, I'm no fan of capital punishment, and it is kind of funny. It's not a smuggled broadcast, man. Biliyorum. I'm not a fan of capital punishment. I don't believe in capital punishment. But also, like, I mean, go ahead. Explain this to Americans, dude. Go ahead. Talk to the people of Ohio and be like, China is so bad. You know when like what's happening in your backyard, something even worse than that happened in China, and the way they dealt with it was by literally fucking going after the executive. A Chinese court has jailed 25 government officials and 24 company managers over a series of explosions in the port city of Tianjin that killed more than 165 people last year. State-owned Xinhua news agency said on Wednesday the punishments range from 1 to 1.5 year jail term to a suspended death sentence, which is generally commuted to life in prison. The massive explosions in August 2015 at a chemical warehouse caused losses estimated more than $1 billion and sparked anger that the structure had been built so close to residential areas. A government report on the disaster blamed the ignition of hazardous materials that had been improperly or illegally stored at the site. A Tianjin court handled the harshest sentence to the chairman. That is unimaginable. A chairman of a company getting the harshest sentence? What? Did they mean like they gave him a golden parachute? Which operated the facility for crimes ranging from illegal storage of dangerous substances to bribery. In February, the government said it detained 49 people in connection to the blast. Meanwhile, there's chatters from Tucson, Arizona that have been like trying to get me to fucking cover this. Hi, I'm in Tucson, Arizona. There was a nitric acid chemical spill really close to our house and it's extremely windy and I'm scared. This is happening right now. I got an alert on my phone about 30 minutes ago to shelter in place and turn off all heaters and shut the windows.